I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Zwicker?
Here.
Ms. Breyer?
Here.
Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. All present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is a public hearing. Jim, are you leading this?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
For the record, my name is Jim Seitz. I'm the Transportation Planning and Programming Supervisor for the Transportation System Division, and I'll be giving the staff presentation for the public hearing this evening. And the topic is the 2013 to 2018 TIP, Transportation Improvement Plan. The purpose of this plan is it is mandated by our state law. It's required to have all of our projects or programs in the TIP in order for us to receive either state or federal funding for our projects. So that's an important reason why we need to have projects in the TIP. It should reflect citizens and elected officials' recommendations. Transportation planning really is a grassroots effort, and we really appreciate it when citizens come forward and give us ideas for projects. A lot of those turn out to be some of our best projects. We have a project that we'll see tonight on one of the slides called the Highlands to Landing / Boeing connection, which actually came out of a grassroots effort by working with the Highlands community. So it's really important to get that citizen involvement in the TIP process. It does provide, from a budgeting standpoint, a detailed multi-year plan for funding and the development of the transportation facilities. And of course, it's used to coordinate with our other agencies such as Sound Transit, Metro, all the public and private utilities. We need to be sure that we let them know what projects we have planned in the future so that when we involve them in the projects, they can do their budgeting, get their budgets in place so that they'll be ready to go when we're going to construction also. The TIP is also supports our City Business Plan, Comprehensive Plan, and the Growth Management Act. It does this by allowing us to plan for growth, the infrastructure improvements for the growth that we will be receiving, and also to plan and allocate funding for maintenance of our infrastructure. We also are able to leverage quite a bit of outside funding by doing the TIP and allocating our local funds to leverage our state and federal funds. So what exactly is in the TIP? We have 42 projects or programs in the TIP. These are general categories. The corridor projects are generally our biggest projects that most of the allocation of funding goes to, because they are very expensive projects, such as the Rainier Avenue corridor, the Carr Road corridor, fourth corridor, third, fourth corridor, and Sunset corridor are all within the TIP. We do have other programs that maintain our infrastructure, such as our asphalt overlay program, and we have non-motorized programs that improve ADA ramps, sidewalks, etc. Under the other category, we do have smaller programs such as the 1% for the Arts, very important program that we work with our CED staff and the Arts Board to figure out projects that potentially could implement some of the 1% for the Arts. We do have some new projects that we are inserting in the TIP this year. We'd like to insert Rainier Phase 2. This will be from 3rd Street, South 3rd Street to Airport Way. This would be the second phase. As everybody is aware, we're already under construction for the first phase. South Grady Way from Maine to West City Limits is another project that's been in our comp plan for quite a few years, and we'd like to start developing projects for that. So we'd like to insert it in the 6-year TIP. And Lake Washington Loop Trail, we would also like to incorporate into the 6-year TIP. This would provide a separated multi-use trail all the way around the airport and would allow a separation between business uses on Perimeter Road and non-motorized uses. We've hit some major milestones this last year for a lot of our projects. We're moving into construction on the Garden Avenue North widening and intersection improvements. We also have broken ground on the Rainier Avenue project from South Grady Way to 2nd. And Strander, another large project that will provide the only public access to the new sounder station when that is built by Sound Transit. And up on 4th Avenue, we've given notice to proceed for the contractor to begin that project, so that should be starting fairly soon with a new signalization at Whitman, provide much better access to the post office and the businesses in that area. Very much a safety improvement for this particular area. And the other project that I alluded to earlier was the Highlands to Boeing/Landing pedestrian connection, which will provide a pedestrian connection where there currently none exist. This will be starting, we've given notice to proceed for the contractor, and we expect that, actually no, but that was the last project. We actually are under design on this, we're under design on this particular project and expect to go out to construction in early 2013 on this particular project. Finally, one of the programs I'd like to highlight is our asphalt overlay program we do on an annual basis. Spend approximately $1 million per year on this particular program. A very popular program that we have throughout the city.
That's coming down.
Moving to the funding, the colors turned out a little bit different than I expected on the screen. Mine show green and red, where this shows kind of a dark gray for red, so let me explain what you're looking at. The lighter green is grant funding over a 6-year period is what the bar chart shows for the TIP. So that lighter gray would be the city funds, the darker gray would be the unfunded amounts. And as you can see in the first year, there's approximately $25 million that we have all funded. For the most part, that is grant funding. You can see about $2.6 million in city funds on the bottom, where we've leveraged quite a few dollars, as you can see, to get to the $25 million that we have for expenditures and or for funding in 2013. Then as you get further out into the TIP, of course, a lot of these projects are unfunded. Our goal would be to change all those really dark grays to green. That's what we try to do every year through applying for grants. This is just another look at that particular issue, funded versus unfunded. As you can see, about the numbers here, 47 million on the left side is funded through the 6-year program, and 149 million approximately is unfunded. Looking at the revenue sources for our city funding, as I said earlier, most of it comes from grants. We do quite a bit of leveraging with our city money, and approximately 66% is coming from grants over the 6-year period. 23% comes from our business license fees, 9% from the gas fuel tax, and the final 2% is mitigation fees. Got a little bit ahead there. This chart shows not only the current or past funding that we've received under those different categories for city funds, but also the future of what we're projecting out over this 6-year period. On the very top is a summary of all 3 of the funding sources, the business license fee, mitigation fees, and fuel tax. And as you can see, in about 2008 is when it really spiked, and we've really seen a downturn as all the economy has turned downwards to where we're kind of tapering off now, and the revenue sources are basically flat over the 6-year period that we were projecting out. In particular, though, mitigation fees were over the next 2 years, we do not expect to receive a whole lot. So you can see that's actually dipped over the next couple of years. On a more positive note, the last year has been a very fruitful year for getting grants. I think we submitted about 10 grants this last year, and as you can see, we received 8 of those, approximately over $10 million in grants from state and federal agencies. That's the last part of the TIP presentation, but one thing that we do every year as part of this public hearing and annual update of the TIP is to also bring in any new streets that we have in the city due to annexations. And we did have a Gale annexation this past year, and we'd like to bring in 2 more streets into the city. We'll be adding 2 collector streets, 164th and 132nd. And with that, I do need to mention that we had a transportation committee meeting last Thursday, and we had some questions arise that we did not get the committee to report out at this time. We're working on answering those questions currently, and we hope to have all those answers and any issues resolved by the end of this week. So we would expect this is our recommendation, but we would not expect the council to make any motions on it tonight. It'll probably be next week is when
We'll
we
hold
expect
a
that.
resolution.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So our recommended action is to approve the 6-year transportation improvement plan, approve the 2012 Arterial street plan, and present the resolution regarding this matter for reading and adoption, most likely at the next council meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Any questions from council? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody from the audience that wants to address this topic? Please give your name for the record, city of residence, and you have 5 minutes.
Mark Martinez. I live in Renton and Northeast 5th Street. So as some of you guys know, in Issaquah, there's a pedestrian walkway right over by I-90. I have no idea how much the city spent on it, but it's a ton of money that the city spent on to move people from the north side of I-90 to the south side of I-90. And I'm looking at some of these things, especially the one that's the Boeing connection. So Sunset is a very, very steep hill to walk up or bike up if you're gonna walk on that. I drive that road every morning when I go to work, and I don't see anybody, people walking that road to and from. And I'm just concerned that we're spending our money wisely when we're spending city money to improve road quality. Specifically, you know, there's nothing in here about that I really saw other than to the side of downtown Renton, mitigating traffic, making traffic flow better through that area, and spending a lot of money for pedestrians to go on a road that most people wouldn't want to walk up anyway because it's so long and so steep. It just, I want to make sure we're using our money wisely and putting the resources where they're best used. Now I can understand, well, people wouldn't walk on it because there's no designated walking area right now. So I guess that's one way to look at it. But then if you look at it another way, well, why would anybody want to walk up a really, really steep hill that's long, right? So I get the point that, you know, there's nothing there to walk on, so if we build something, if you build it, they will come, right? I don't think that's going to be the case with this particular situation. I think maybe we put something more into downtown Renton. Even some of the outlying areas could use a little more attention. So that's just what I wanted to say. A lot of money spent on something that very few people will use. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Person.
You'd be surprised at how many people have approached the council asking for that pedestrian corridor, both in person and by email. And I was always impressed when I went into the party store at the landing, and there's a young lady there that walks to work that way every day because that's the only way she can get to work, and there is no walkway for her. And another young lady in the running store had fallen jogging to work coming down that. So we have had a lot of requests, and there is that, and the state has made a generous contribution to that. So it's really mostly state funds that we're using, which I'm as concerned about using state funds where they meet the best. But they also pointed out that that was just a lapse in their construction, and it should have been included in the first one. So that's the reasoning that it's in there.
Okay. Madam Clerk, any correspondence?
No correspondence, Mr. Mayor.
What's the wish of the council?
I see somebody raising their hand in the back.
Well, if you wanted to testify on this issue, come on up to the podium. And please give your name and city of residence for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, Kathy Uzenkop, and I lived in Renton for 40 years. And I would like to speak about the air quality on the Sunset Boulevard Highway. And I want to give you a personal experience. And I want to have you think in terms of children with asthma and children using this walkway. Because the air quality on that highway, Sunset Boulevard, from 3:20 until 5 minutes to 5, which I tested recently on a Friday afternoon. I was on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and 12th during that time period, and I went home ill because my ears were popping, my throat was red and parched, and I had inhaled too much of the exhaust fumes from the automobiles from the stop and go lights on Sunset. Sunset Boulevard has 5 lights from the 405 junction up the hill, and the traffic backs up on those lights. And whatever kind of a walkway you develop, you need to consider the air quality and the air quality for the people who are walking that walkway, because they will be exposed to the exhaust fumes if they walk from Sunset Boulevard and 12th all the way down to the landing, almost as long as I was exposed to the exhaust fumes on a Friday afternoon from 3:20 until 5. And if you don't believe it, you should have some air quality testers out there. Talk to your environmental people and do something about it to protect the citizens of Renton. This is a very, very serious issue in the schools, and it's getting worse. I am a retired school nurse. I have cared for children who barely made it in from recess after doing a 5-minute PE drill. The child collapsed in the health room, a 6th grader. Was very fortunate that his life was saved, but only after the 2nd advanced medic unit got there. But he was in terrible shape because traffic was backed up in the area of the school at 3:15 in the afternoon, and the advanced vehicle could not get to the school. The child had to receive injections on the way to Valley Medical. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Beedon, B-E-E-D-O-N, Renton resident for 30 years. I have a question and a comment. My question is directed at this gentleman here. What is a collector?
No, excuse me, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What is a collector street?
There's a classification system for all of our streets, and a collector street typically collects vehicles or pedestrians from your residential streets and delivers those onto your major arterial streets. So it's just a classification usually based upon ADT, the land use and surrounding use.
Thank you. My statement is, as far as the issue of build it and they will come, I believe in some cases that's true. My personal experience living in the Tiffany Park neighborhood allowed me to see what happened on Puget Drive south between Talbot and Benson when a sidewalk was installed there. Use of that area, that stretch of road by pedestrians went up, and it was obviously more comfortable to walk on a concrete walkway than it was on an informal dirt path that wasn't maintained whatsoever. So I think in general pedestrian walkways are a good idea as long as they're done in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anybody else who want to address the council on this public hearing?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
move the public hearing be closed.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Mr. Corman, that the public hearing be closed. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And as Jim mentioned, we'll be holding that resolution until next week. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Next is administrative report. I just wanted to mention, as you well know, Renton voters overwhelmingly voted to express their preference for the library building to remain over the Cedar River. And I wanted council to know that we're moving forward, the city is moving forward with discussions with KCLS for design work and other things that need to be done there. So just wanted to give you that update. Next is audience comment. We have a number of people signed up to address the council. This week we're supposed to shift into a 3-minute comment period by council policy, but the council president has permitted me to say we'll leave it at 5 minutes this week because we have a number of people that like to discuss the audience comment timing. So with that, when I call your name, please come to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record. You have 5 minutes, and the timer's right next to the city clerk. So first is, oh, I got to turn this over. First is Stuart Avery.
For the record, my name is Stuart Avery, last name A-V-E-R-Y, first name S-T-U-A-R-T, Renton resident for 17 plus years now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Council President for actually extending this period this week for the 5 minutes. I'm here to talk about the reduction in time that was moved on last week. Mr. Mayor and council members, I am extremely concerned and disappointed in the recent actions taken to reduce the time limit at the first public comment session from a 5-minute period to a 3-minute period. And I also am disappointed about the new restrictions where the public can only make statements in the second audience participation if those statements do not refer to anything that was discussed or topics in the first time. Having reviewed the audio portion of the August 6th committee, the whole meeting, it was clear to me that some of the council are indeed attempting to create a solution which is in search of a problem. For those less skilled in articulating or where English is a second language, you are raising barriers at a time when you need to be more in touch with public sentiment and opinion, as Proposition 1 election results clearly illustrated. The awareness within the public to the actions of this council and the city administration in part comes from public comment at council meetings. The word public is key here. Simply inviting the citizens to email or write to council if they find that the new reduced restricted speaking time is insufficient removes the important public element. It is for the public benefit that these speaking times are critical so that those not attending can have transparent access to viewpoints which they would otherwise have to conduct public information requests to obtain if those communications were moved to a non-public forum such as email or telephone conversations. To exclude anyone further on the second commenting for speaking on subjects that were discussed during the first period literally prevents any public forms of rebuttal statements or corrections to possible council misinterpretation on previous delivered statements, or for clarification on council responses on those statements that were brought earlier. In my experience at council meetings, sometimes those long, redundant messages coming from the public one after another are the key indicator that an issue may require more of your attention and not less. It is a measure tool, not at all inefficient. You are here to listen to your constituents in a public setting so that we can be assured the population at large in this city are aware of objections and praises to the policies that you legislate and why. To me, this policy change is suspicious and frankly in my own mind reeks of ulterior motives cloaked under the heading of improving efficiency. I can say that with great certainty the citizens hold great value in their ability to publicly address its leadership. And I do not view restrictions in this arena as simply a form of efficiency. Please consider, at the street level, there is a rapidly growing consensus that City Hall is out of touch and needs to listen more and not less. Continuing on this path does not promote democracy, it simply muzzles it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Dave Beaton.
I'm Dave Beaton, B-E-E-D-O-N, Renton resident. On this issue of reducing the time period for comments by citizens, I'm normally content to let the city fathers make important decisions for me because, of course, they know what's best. I'm just a simple tax-paying citizen in the city providing salaries for persons in positions of power and authority. And I don't feel I have much to contribute in the way of ideas or opinions. But I really have to state my objection to this particular move to make the council, the operation of the council, more efficient. And I want to start off by saying you can't be serious. Reducing the time period from 5 minutes to 3 minutes is still going to allow people to ramble on endlessly, repeat themselves, and create tedium and boredom in the council meetings and other places perhaps. I've done some research, and from what I've read, you need to, if you're really serious about getting efficient in the government operations, you need to reduce the comment period down to about 5 or 10 seconds. Now, before you dismiss that, let's look at the benefits. One is an unintended benefit you will create many more good speakers in the city. They'll be forced to become better speakers. They'll have to learn how to make their point in a very reduced period of time. And Toastmasters would probably be interested in talking to some of those people to learn some tips. Another thing is that with a reduced comment time, there will be fewer words spoken by any given person. That means there are fewer words to record and transcribe. And I'd like to think that there's a cost saving in there. I'm not sure, but I'd like to, I'm hopeful. And the most important issue about reducing the comment time is, well, it applies to the effort to evaluate and prioritize those comments. With 5 to 10 seconds to make a strong point about an issue, most people probably won't get to the point very well. So those in power who are looking at those comments will have much freer ability to just dismiss them because they're meaningless. Joe Blow can't come to the point, so just throw it in the trash. Now, I want to conclude by apologizing. If I've been repetitive, I'm really sorry. I don't want to bore anybody. And I do also want to apologize by my tendency to get facetious. It's not my intention to be that way. It just comes naturally. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ben Johnson.
Good day, Ben Johnson, John. I'm proud to live in Renton. You're probably wondering why I'm here to talk about the reduction of time. You're probably wondering why I'd bother to do that. Most people know I don't like people, and I especially don't like talking people, and I especially don't like the talking public. And you probably think that the only reason I would like to have an extended time is so I can hear myself ramble on and be in front of the TV and I have a captive audience, which kind of inflates my ego. But the public comment period, I would like to maybe take you back to the Egyptian era. And the Egyptians had this unique feature of one of their religions, in that there was sort of a sarcastic person that was actually in charge of trying to poke holes in the religion while this religion was taking place. The idea being that if the religion couldn't stomach having a few holes poked into it, that maybe people ought to pay attention. As far as historians know, the Romans picked up on this. The emperor, as he was going through having his triumphal parade through the streets of Rome after conquering, vast areas of land, actually had a slave right behind him, reminding him that he was mortal. And this idea that the powerful can be reminded of their mortality or their foolishness was also carried over into the modern or semi-modern, Renaissance time, when you actually had what was called a licensed fool, or otherwise known as the court jester, who in most principalities was actually given vast leeways to say anything he wanted to the prince or king, without the fear of punishment. The idea that you could be sort of a touchstone on any silly idea. And this was even put to great effect for, James VI of Scotland, who was convinced by his fool to sign a piece of paper that made him abdicate the throne for 15 days. you can believe that poor James read everything he signed after that. So what I'm trying to say is the public comment period is pretty darn useful, because every once in a while, one of us fools, such as I, can kind of look you in the eye and say, that's the darndest idea I ever heard, and knock it off. And some of us are not so verbose as I am, and they could certainly squeeze everything down to 3 minutes. But I would caution you to maybe find a different solution, in that maybe you could ban certain topics like arcane rules of the Federal Reserve System and things such as that, or possibly, I'm just kind of rambling off the top of my head, moving the committee of the whole to after the council meeting, so that you don't have that awkward 30-minute buffer that sometimes you need and sometimes you don't. Things of that nature to speed things up. But again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ed Diamond.
My name is Ed Diamond, and I'm a Fairwood resident. I'm here to, I'm representing Washington Citizens for Sustainable Economy, and I'm here to deliver invitations to all of you to attend a meeting August 29th to hear an excellent explanation of the connection between the city of Renton and other municipalities and ICLEI, now called Local Governments for Sustainability, which has its roots in the United Nations Agenda 21. The talk will be by Rosa Corey from San Jose, California, who wrote the excellent book, Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. Some of you know what I'm talking about, and I'm sure some of you don't. It's amazing how many that do not. It's very important for all of us to know the real agenda behind this Local Governments for Sustainability. A few Washington counties and some others in the U.S. have come to see this true agenda and have withdrawn from the membership. There's more information in the invitation, and I urge you to become even more educated by attending.
Thank you. You can hand those to the city clerk here. Thanks. Next is Cal Lambert.
Good evening. My name's Cal Lambert. I'm a businessman. I have an office down on Burnett, and I live in West Hill. To all council members, I first want to say thank you for your service, sincerely.
If you would speak into the microphone, please.
Am I out of time? Citizen participation must continue in the library matter. The 2010 KCLS annexation vote was not a referendum on relocation of the library, but the 2012 ballot was, and the answer was no. As a consequence, the ILA with KCLS now appears in conflict with the will of the voters of Renton. This was not a big surprise. You will recall that in the early debate on annexation, Councilwoman Palmer strongly cautioned that her constituents did not want the library moved. I do not believe that people changed their minds. In short, I believe that the city administration ran a red light. In moving forward, the voters are now going to support you. This bred the public support for the Cedar River site did not go away when the polls closed. Grassroots support will continue. However, in addition to citizen support, it appears to me you need two kinds of legal help. One is advisor, the other is advocate. In my opinion, you can best now serve the people of Renton by retaining outside counsel, specifically dedicated to advocacy for the city's modified position. I do not believe that you received that support from the city attorney, who chose instead to discuss his comments on the front page of the local penny saver. $20K, I believe, will buy you a confidential strategy for handling the ILA. Lastly, the city can credibly challenge KCLS putative expertise and estimates and will prevail if it does so. To a significant extent, the issues are technical, not contractual, and a fact-based examination will strengthen the city's position in any mediation. In point, this audience has access to facts that this council may not have, and you need to see those documents, please, and analysis before digging this hole deeper. Therefore, I respectfully request a council member to move to schedule an expert presentation on renovation options and costs to be scheduled on or about August 26th. The presentation is to be made by one or more members of the Citizens for Cedar River Library and will be followed by Q&A. Will council recognize my request?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Well, we'll certainly take it under consideration. I mean, it's a good idea that the mayor suggested to us tonight, or told us tonight, that he's going forward. So let's, I would think that the idea of a forum on the topic is relevant, and we should roll that into our planning. So, thank you.
Thank you. And in view of the limits on times in the future, I think that this presentation could be a much more valuable asset in that we have a great deal of detailed information which will not only affect the cost of the project but also the shape of the final outcome, much more to the likes of the city, people of the city of Renton. And I don't think we want to get back into this again if the design suddenly changes things in ways that create the same sort of uproar we've just gone through.
Okay, next is Richard Bray.
Hello, my name is Richard Bray. I'm a Renton resident, and last name is B-R-A-Y. I've lived here for 21 years with my family. Good evening, council members. Twice I spoke to you this past spring. Once to share how the Cedar River Library had been a blessing to my family over these past 20 years, and the other to share my profound disappointment at your initial rejection of the certified citizens petitions for vote on the library. Each time I came after my 12-year-old son's Michael's baseball game, evening games. One time it meant that I could only address you during the second comment period. Under your new guidelines, you eliminate the opportunity to address you personally if the subject has already been discussed earlier. I urge you to reconsider for these reasons. People who work later or whose children have early evening activities should not be penalized for trying to be good parents and good citizens. I shouldn't have to miss my son's baseball game in order for me to address you personally at one of these meetings. Nor should someone have to leave work early and take a financial hit if they want to come to address you personally. Giving maximum access to local government should be your goal, not to take it away. I respectfully remind you that you do work for citizens, and listening to citizens should be your #1 responsibility. I urge you to return back to the prior comment periods that allowed people reasonable time to address you. I shouldn't have to choose between missing my son's baseball game and speaking directly to you on important issues. My son's baseball team fall season is about to start. I will be there for my son and his games. I want to be there for my community too. Welcome and give access to those who turn off the TV and engage our community. Encourage them. Thank them. Don't penalize them. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
Listening to several of the comments, I really think there's a misinterpretation about the second audience comment period that I'd like to address. What our goal was that if someone has come at the beginning and spoken at the first audience comment, say a certain aspect of the shorelines when we were doing that, that if they wanted to speak at the second, they just needed to bring up a different topic and not talk about the same topic again. It doesn't mean that they can't come in and speak at the second time on any topic, anything new. We just don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. So if they've already spoken about it on the first audience comment, then we would like to hear something different from them if they want to talk again at the second one. And that was my interpretation of what we had passed. So I think there's a lot of confusion in what the meeting was. It has nothing to do with what topics have been discussed, or we may have passed in the consent agenda and someone wants to speak about them. Everything's open. We're just trying to, we often have, and one of the reasons we did this now was because there wasn't any big, not that the library isn't big, but like when we did shorelines, when we were doing the Shoreline Management Act, we would have the same speakers come up half a dozen times per meeting talking about the same thing, and that's what we're trying to get away from. So not that we want to limit unnecessarily. I don't know that I said that really well, but anyway, it certainly isn't our intent to do it the way some of these speakers have mentioned.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr.
If I could just add to that, it still nonetheless creates a reduction of audience comment. The first comment period being reduced from 5 minutes to 3 is a 40% reduction of content that an individual can provide. The second audience comment period being reduced from 5 minutes to 2 minutes is a 60% reduction. And if you compound that with the notion that if you miss the first audience comment period, you're limited to the second audience comment period, which means that you've got 2 minutes to say whatever you want to say, even if it is on a different subject than what was commented on initially. I don't have a problem with redundancy. I think that sometimes it takes redundancy in order for us to get it. I think the case in point was revealed to us when our residents came to propose their pushback to the library relocation. And even though they were very vocal, they were redundant, they reiterated, it still took quite a bit for us to tune in and hear them. So I'm of the mind that as a hired elected official who was hired by the people to work for the people, I'm always interested in opportunities to hear more from my employer, not less, my employers, and to make sure that whatever policy decisions we're making, that we're getting it right. And I think that we need to be informed more, not less.
Okay, next is Jeannie Green Crook.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Jeannie Green Crook. It's Greene-CROOK. I'm at 82 Monterey Place, Northeast here in Renton, and I've lived here for 32 years. My husband and I have a local business here in Renton. I'm here tonight to ask you to honor the 76+% Renton voters and not hold up or delay any permitting procedures or actions to delay the refurbishing of our Cedar River Library. The voters have voiced where they want their library to be. Now you need to do your jobs as our elected officials and get this done. We as Renton taxpayers voted you to represent us, and if you cannot do this, you should step down from your positions and let someone else get the job done. Prop 1 was not about the money. It was about the iconic building on the river, and that's what we want. And as far as the 3 and 2 minutes, I think the time in between, when you deny something or say we can't have it, we should be able to address that and say what we want to. So I feel that should be addressed. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, I have a picture of our citizens that we marched in the parade, and I want you to know it was a wonderful day in Renton.
Thank you. I really hope I don't destroy this name. I'm having a hard time reading the writing. It looks like John Joseph Pager. Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
Yes, that is John Joseph, all one word, no hyphen or space in the middle J. And last name is Pager, P-A-J-O-R. I'm a 2-year resident of Renton. I had come here tonight primarily because I just heard about the vote last week about limiting the public to 3 minutes. If this was regarding Twitter or texting, that might be an appropriate place for such a limit. But for face-to-face meetings before city government and its citizens, it's totally insufficient. Primarily because you are to govern under a sacred trust as representative government. And especially meetings are made public for the sake of public awareness as well as their input. In America, the people are the government. And I think you should review the past meetings prior to the vote on Proposition 1 regarding the library, the selection of the site, because the council then bragged to be representative of the public majority. I still remember the meeting the council decided to go ahead with the planned project, and a woman was up here to express her points of view and her concerns, and she was shouted down from this very place. I believe that was an egregious act against her constitutional right. And if you don't see that, it was unfortunate that we hadn't had other people with representative government here. I think they would have taken you to task on the spot. My second remarks have to do with the landslide vote of 70% of the public to retain the site of the Cedar River Library. And even with such a public mandate, the Renton Reporter suggests that the council still has the right to reverse the public's mandate. I sincerely hope here that this august body does not do something that egregious against their public, who they represent, because I suggest it's a veritable public suicide, a political suicide. I posit that any actions from here on to the completion of your project with the Cedar Library, that any shape or cost of the final income be subject to sufficient public notice and public input. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is
Mr. Mayor. I think
yes, Mr. Person.
I think there's another misunderstanding here. Is as you so clearly stated at the start of the meeting, the vote is a vote, and you have directed staff and everybody to move post haste to work with the KCLS to refurbish the library over the river, and I haven't heard any conversation other than that. So, but several of the public have spoken thinking that there's going to be another shot at this, or there's some other change, and it just, I haven't heard that from anybody, so, on the council or the mayor or the administration, so I just wanted to get that clear with everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Person. Next is Kathy Osenkop.
Yes, Kathy Osenkop, a 40-year resident of the city of Renton. And I took a look at your website today, and it says the city of Renton works in participation and partnership with residents. Businesses and schools provide a healthy, welcoming atmosphere where citizens choose to live, raise families, and take pride in their community. A change in the ability to speak from 5 minutes to 3 minutes before the city council, and a change in being able to speak at the end of the council meetings, as has been historically something citizens could depend on for the last 5 years. I think it really is an outrage of something that we can depend on. At least we could depend on coming down to the city council meeting and speaking to you for 5 minutes. We could depend on being able to speak to you after the end of the council meeting if something came up during the meeting that seemed to trigger another response from us. We do need rebuttal. We do have confusion over what has happened. We have confusion over what has been written in the newspaper about this issue of the library. When you go to your care provider, he asks you 3 and 4 times about your medical history over and over, so he gets it. This is what we have to do here before the city council, so that people get it, so people understand it, because we all come from different educational levels. We come from different walks of life. We come with different cultural backgrounds. People do not have always the ability to articulate themselves in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 3 minutes. I try to keep mine within 3 minutes or less, because I happen to have the privilege of having an education at the University of Washington, one of our prized educational institutions. And I think if this council needs guidance on government of the people, by the people, and for the people, I believe there are history and economic professors, there are architects and other consultants that could give them guidance. We live in an area where there's great ability to get additional contact and guidance, so that we can have an excellent opportunity and an excellent situation here in Renton. It also says on your website, City Council may adopt and enforce ordinances of all kinds relating to local or municipal affairs and appropriate to the good government of the city of Renton. Good government allows people to speak. If people need 5 minutes, they should be allowed 5 minutes. If they need 3 minutes at the end of the meeting, they should be allowed 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
if I may just offer a bit of clarification, since I think I'm the one who started all this mess. Our council policy, as written, and this would be an example of it this evening, limits audience comment to 30 minutes, which we would now have exceeded, which means nobody would get to talk until the end of the meeting. And the purpose of the second audience comment, your second bite of the apple, was never in our council policy. It was an overflow. Second audience comment was overflow from the first one if limited to 30 minutes. That was something that I wanted to correct, because I didn't like the fact that theoretically under our council policy, after 30 minutes we needed to shut off and get on to business for the staff that are here and other people that are here to conduct the business that the council needed to conduct. So theoretically, those that got bumped to the second one under our council policy would not get to speak on something that was before us this evening. So one of the things that we talked about was eliminating the 30-minute and reducing it to 3 minutes, so everybody has a chance to talk, that there's no time limit on that. We then went a step further and guaranteed a second audience comment, which no other governing body has 2 audience comments. So we actually are codifying the fact that you get a second audience comment. Because we've been doing it that way for the past couple of years, does not mean that's what our policy reflected. This policy change, while yes, taking you from 5 to 3, that we can all and always have granted extra time for those that needed it, ensures that everybody's heard before decisions of the council are made, and also ensures that people have a second chance to come up and ask for clarification. So we've enhanced, in my opinion, we greatly enhanced the public's opportunity to discuss and to address this body before we make decisions. Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, next is Howard McComber.
Howard McComber, M-C-O-M-B-E-R. I live in the Renton Highlands. I'm coming before you. First of all, I'd like to make one little thing clear, and that is that we had a wonderful consensus, and we worked a cooperation thing on the library, and the public was heard, and the mayor went to work immediately on getting that fixed. I was at one of those committee meetings that I meet with, one of those volunteer jobs with Terry, and I asked the mayor how that was coming and what kind of trouble, and he said he's already met with them, they're already working with us, and I expect that this will go forward. We do have an extremely efficient city government. At this moment in time, I don't think anybody matches the efficiency of this administration. It will get the job done, it will get it done well. I think it is important to give reports to the people that how the progress is coming. I think that would make things a lot easier. I realize you made that comment right off the bat, but it probably needs to be made often. Now, I came to talk about your position as the people who determine policy and direction in the city. I belong in the Highlands, and this is my #1 concern. And the Highlands happens to be the best kept secret for affordable housing in Western Washington, just is. We have a wonderful community there. It's been going for a long time, and it has a lot of diversity. If you want to find diversity, we got diversity at the Highlands, but we like it. But we need to have, when we go for, this has to do with the new programs that are coming out. What I'm asking for is that we keep a lot of options open, that we don't cut off ways that people can improve their property or can, with the Growth Management Act, all the new growth is supposed to come on the urban side of the rural-urban line, which is fine. And that means that we're going to be doing stuff in the Highlands. Highlands is not Bellevue, was certainly not Clyde Hill, or the Highlands. That's it. And it's a livable community, and I certainly enjoy calling it home. But it means there's going to be some differences, and we're not going to be able to solve problems the same way. We do need to do infill. We've got some big lots that we can subdivide. What I'd like this group to remember is to keep flexibility and opportunity for discussion on projects. So project by project, that there's some opening there to say, okay, well, this normally wouldn't be, but this makes sense. We can go ahead and do this. I want that to be remembered. And then also, I'm not interested in turning that into a really high-priced area. I like keeping it affordable. I think of the two choices, this is the affordable. Now, in the East Renton area, we've got some wonderful homes going up. I just think those are fabulous. But the difference is that we're an established area, and we have established eclectic. We have soup to nuts. We have brand new houses, and we've got a lot of World War II vintage, which I happen to think is the best affordable housing for a lot of people. And if we ruin that, if we take it away, we're hurting people. It's real pain. It's not a choice of being A and B. It's a choice of having a place to live, and it's that tight. So I'd just like to have you remember that the Highlands are its old thing to give us a great deal of flexibility. Now, I think that Chip Vincent is fantastic, and his staff is good, and they do wonderful things, but their direction comes from you. You're the one who says, hey, this is what we're interested in. This is our general goal. They can do the little things, and then if you give Chip the freedom to say, yeah, but this makes sense, even if the rules don't look quite like that, this makes sense, let's go ahead and do it, that he has that ability to do it. So we can have the Highlands improve, but they're going to be a little odd. It's because we are a little odd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could I just add a little bit of context to Mr. Pecumber's statements? Very interesting. He's always such a good spokesperson for so many people in the Highlands. It is, in my mind, a little bit of a dilemma what planning and development has been looking at recently, which is that, and it's a little different than my vision, and I think ultimately there's going to need to be some more public comment and process around this, but the Highlands, as Mr. McCumber alluded in some correspondence he sent to us, at one point 4 or 5 years ago there was talk about changing it entirely over and some big maybe government ownership program that would convert all the duplexes to something different. And as we know, it's kind of ancient history now, but the citizens spoke up, and we didn't do anything like that. Instead, what we did was we sort of kept all the duplexes in place, but established zoning that would allow lot by lot, individual owners could kind of come forward. Maybe they could consolidate a couple lots and switch over to some other maybe higher density but brand new kind of housing to sort of retire some of the now 60 to 70-year-old duplexes. Well, anyways, what's been happening is there's been a lot of development where there's been new projects going in, but the duplexes stay in place, and so our staff weren't sure that was really the intention. They thought, well, maybe the intention really was that when a lot is redeveloped, that the duplex comes out. And that's sort of the issue that's before planning and development. And I think the citizens are going to maybe have to weigh in on that. And Mr. McCumber's right. You knock the duplex down and take it out, and that particular unit or two of low-income housing, I won't even call it low-income housing, but working class housing that's got yards and things does go away. At the same time, there's some of them that look so tired that they just seem like they're ready to come out. Some of those duplexes, I agree with statements Mr. McCumber's made in the past that with a good coat of paint, they actually look quite nice, but other ones are tired. So anyways, that's the issue. And I think it's going to come back before the council. It's in planning development now, and I'm still kind of a, open slate on that. I'm not quite sure what to do about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corman. Next is David Kais.
It's David Keys.
Keys, sorry about that.
That's okay, that's fine. And I live in the Renton Highlands. And I wanted to speak to you on this issue of the time limit as well. And I appreciate, Terry, what you said about the language, particularly of the second period. But in reading the text, that didn't come through to me at all. And I don't think it came through to many other people, which at the very best means it could be interpreted at least 2 or 3 different ways. And I would certainly hope that as a council you revisit this one. I mean, I'd hope you do that anyway. But whatever language comes out, you'll have to refine that part of it. Mr. Zwicker, I appreciate you expressing your thoughts. On the other hand, I feel just about as vehemently that it should not be shortened. I went back through your meeting minutes for this, not the entire year, but back to the beginning of this calendar year. There have been 23 meetings, and there were 4 of them that went well more than an hour. 2 of those were just under an hour and a half, and then 2 of them were within a couple of minutes of 3 hours long. And 3 of those 4 meetings, including the 2 longest ones, were both during some of the most intense discussions on the library issue. That certainly meant you had a lot of people here, and I recognize that you felt you wanted to give as many of us as chance to speak as possible. On the other hand, reducing that time from 5 to 3 reduces us to something close to a soundbite. At least for me it would. You've had to cut me off at 5, and that's okay. But 3 is pretty extreme. We don't have a choice. Now, I understand there are hearings and there are situations tonight, like the hearing on traffic, where there is more opportunity for input. But I understand that once a policy is set, that goes away. Maybe there can be revisiting of some of those things as well, if you really feel you need to cut that down. By the way, if you take those 4 meetings out of the meetings for the year, the average meeting was 36 minutes long. So I think you're doing pretty well in terms of efficiency. And I appreciate sometimes it's not much fun to listen to us. But I think there's something there to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mohammed Hassan.
My name is Mohammed Hassan. I live in Renton for the last 10 years. M-O-H-A-M-E-D and H-A-S-S-A-N. I came here today to talk about the 3 minutes public speaking, public comments limit. We have people who speak different languages here in Renton. Even for those people who speak English, cannot express in a certain way their subjects. You are the council members, Mr. Mayor, you are here. This is the house of the people. So people have to feel when they came here that they can explain in a detailed form about the subjects. Because imagine people are coming 15 minutes, 20 minutes from work or from home. They stay here for half an hour. I mean, people have to stay here and comment. So 3 minutes for the first comment, public speaking comment, and second comment is public speaking, which is 2 minutes limit. It's not enough. I have to feel that this is the house of the people. This is my house, where the mayor and council members and courts and everybody, this is the government of Renton. So I have to feel that this is my house. So when I came here, I have to get enough time to express my subjects so that I can explain in detail, so that you understand what I'm talking about. We have a saying back home, talking is a English, it's a plastic. I mean, I might say something to you, but I mean something. My speaking means something, but you might understand in another way. So I have a time to explain. I don't mean that. This is what I mean. So I have to speak, and as you know, our first language is not English. So I have to interpret that. I need a time. We need a time. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mayor, and council members, I want you to consider that. We need to feel this is our house.
Thank you very much. Next is Stuart Battle.
Good evening. Stuart Battle, unfortunately not a resident of Renton, but of Shoreline up north.
You're still welcome.
Thank you. So came here tonight in the spirit of our friend Curiosity on Mars as of a little over a week ago, which is quite a pleasant surprise. Possibly will put a new spark in the footstep of Renton, considering the Boeing and relevant industries here. But I work with the Lyndon LaRouche Political Action Committee, which I believe at least some of you have heard from, maybe not myself, but some of my friends on previous occasions, previous years. And I wanted to first remind people what we had said when we came here, especially starting in 2007, which is as long as I've been doing what I do now. And that is that we were addressing the systemic global economic collapse. Mr. LaRouche said in July of that year that this wasn't going to be a housing bubble collapse. This wasn't going to be a local or simple collapse, but it was going to be systemic. It was going to affect every nation on the planet directly, some of them completely, chaotically, like ours. But there was one solution, and that is the debt had to be written off. I'm not talking about the national debt. I'm talking about the obligations to securities and derivatives, and you guys know all the funny toilet paper money that was out there that was tied up into some of these markets. Now, we had proposed what was called the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act. Back then, we'd come back a year or two later with what was called the Glass-Steagall Act, which is what I'm here representing again tonight. Franklin Roosevelt's original Glass-Steagall Act. But some people were fooled. Hopefully, some of you weren't fooled, but a lot of people were fooled. A lot of people thought Barack Obama was going to protect us from Wall Street in the Dodd-Frank bill in 2010. A lot of people thought that it was going to, go away and the recession was going to come to an end sometime. And a lot of people were very wrong, and a lot of people are still very wrong. But if that's not enough, what's come down very hard recently is the LIBOR rate rigging scandal out of London, out of the European situation, where it's found out that the biggest banks in the world, who are the ones put in charge of the top dog interest rate mechanism of every bank interaction in the world, was being rigged from the core. It was rotten. And not only was that the case, but remember the line about how we needed to bail out these big guys because it meant health on Main Street and at the local level, the money we were giving to do the bailouts was going to these banks that were then in turn turning around and looting from cities and counties. So this system is rotten to the core, and it will destroy any more of our population that we let it to as long as we continue. Now, what I'm here tonight on, we most certainly won't continue our expeditions to Mars if this process isn't brought to a close quickly and we get on with a functional economy, unfortunately. But what I want to bring to you tonight, and I want my friend to go through more of our program, is really the only chance we have at this date to possibly save the nation and other peoples, and that starts with Glass-Steagall. Separate us, commercial banks, what would go as far as municipal and county and state debt, from your market of investment banking and other types of speculative debt, which is all caught up in everything at this point. And that's very doable. My friend's going to read out a list of sponsors in Washington State that have already signed on to it. But I'll also say we've been busy the last few years since we've been here speaking to you all. And as people may have heard, come 3 weeks ago or so, Sandy Weil of Citigroup infamy, known as the Shatterer of Glass-Steagall, welcomed himself as adding his name to supporting Glass-Steagall. And this has been followed by the New York Times, the LA Times, the Financial Times in London, and a whole slew of others around the world that realize we're dead if we don't do something now. So that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a package of stuff for each of you I'll give.
Next is Sarah Stewart.
Hi, that's Sarah Stewart, S-T-U-A-R-T, resident of Seattle. I also work with the LaRouche Political Action Committee, and I just wanted to follow up Stewart's comments, which was that, yes, we do want you to pass a resolution in support of 1489, H.R. 1489, which is a House resolution in the Congress, to separate commercial from investment banks, which would have direct implications for every state and every city in this country.
Mr. Mayor, can I intercede at this point? As long as the speaker is speaking with reference to issues of public concern, it is legitimate, but under the Public Disclosure Act, RCW 4217A 555, if they stray in their comments about campaigning for any ballot measure, whether it be a local ballot, state or federal, or any candidate, then that is prohibited by state law. So as long as the comments are limited to a more broader context of an issue without a request of specific support for any ballot measure or candidate, it's permissible.
Okay, then I'll correct myself and say that we would like a resolution in support of the Glass-Steagall law, which we have many many institutions within Washington State, which I have a list of here, including legislative districts that are part of Renton, as well as Seattle. That's the 30th Legislative District Democratic Committee, the 32nd, 33rd, 11th, the Northwest Washington AFL-CIO, the 5th Legislative Democrats, 36th, 43rd, 47th, 45th. I mean, the list goes on, and we have a complete list of other city councils throughout the nation that have supported this measure, which in and of itself is the first step toward reorganization, but isn't enough. And we have a more complete program that we're actually trying to get adopted at the city, state, county level for a full recovery program, which starts with Glass-Steagall but expands toward creating credit to get into cities and states immediately so that we don't have to cut essential services, and to immediately start a jobs program in the tradition of Franklin Roosevelt, which we've laid out a program called the North American Water and Power Alliance, which would immediately employ 6 million people directly, including, I mean, obviously this area in particular, because we'll need to include and expand Boeing. We'll need to recruit tons of young people to actually be trained to have the skills to rebuild the nation, which right now we are grossly underqualified to do. So we're asking that the city of Renton pass a resolution in support of.
Excuse me, Mr. Barber, are we treading over the line, or?
We are nudging up to the line,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
In terms of.
Please just go ahead and call it to a stop if we get too close to the line. Go ahead.
Okay, just.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr.
you
Mayor.
guys all will receive this. My friend handed it to the city clerk. We ask that you read it, and we want to be in touch with you guys about actually discussing the passage of a resolution for this.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Next is Bob Poitras. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
My name's Bob Poitras. I'm a City of Renton resident for 67 years.
How
And
many
I
years
wasn't
is that?
born here either. My comments are regarding the 3-minute, 5-minute commentary thing. I don't like the fact that you try to muzzle me. If you do pass the 3-minute or stick to it, I would like the ability to give my 3 minutes to somebody like Mr. Avery or somebody that has critical comments. I'm here because I'm interested in what you're doing, although I don't have anything pertinent to say about it. So, like I say, if you stick with the 3-minute, I'd appreciate to be able to give my time to somebody to make a comment. And let's see, can I go off to another subject for just a second?
Sure, absolutely.
Who owns the light at the end of Lind and 180th?
I believe we do. If it's on,
Somebody needs to program it.
If it's on the north side of the intersection,
It's on the north, yeah. It's on,
right at IKEA. Right at IKEA.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. It needs to be reprogrammed. I've sat there for over a minute and a half waiting for traffic a half a mile away so I can make a left-hand turn.
Our Public Works Administrator's here, so he'll make a note of that, and we'll check it.
Anyway, you know, I know the switch costs a lot of money, but it's not being programmed.
No.
Okay?
So you can accomplish a lot in 3 minutes.
Have I got more time? Thank you. Thanks for letting me do that.
Thank you. Next is Beth Asher.
Hi, Beth Asher. I'm a 35-year resident, and I'm here to speak on the speaking limit. First of all, I'd like to say regarding repetitive comments, we, the audience, sit through those same repetitive comments, and we don't do this, we don't do this. We listen politely because those repetitive comments are coming from other people who have interests, who have issues that they feel need to be heard. I would like to say 5 minutes for all, unlimited speaking, and 5 minutes in the second period, and I'll sit through every bit of it. Because to me, that point, counterpoint, rebuttal, that is important. Repeating things so that everybody understands what you're getting at, that is important. We're a mixed bag in Renton. We don't have one culture, we don't have one language, we don't have one economic strata. Everyone expresses themselves differently. We all need to be heard, and I'm willing to sit through as much of it as there is. And I would like to remind you of the survey that was done in 2011. One of the issues addressed on the survey was how well Renton communicates with its residents. Only 4.4% of Renton residents could even find the survey and take it. And of those, half said poor or didn't know, which indicates that you need more input from residents. So please don't muzzle us or stifle us. I would like to propose that we give residents the ability to make presentations, the same courtesy that's accorded to any special interest group that wants to come up and go on for 20 minutes, and we have to listen politely. I would like to also ask that residents perhaps get the chance to form a citizen ombudsman committee to facilitate further talk on issues that they feel there's a need, a desire, a real, pressing concern for the city to handle. There have got to be a lot of ways that we can facilitate communications between the city, and one way is not to keep us from talking, and not to listen to us very, kind of lackadaisically with very little interest. And I like to speak extemporaneously, so I really like the 5 minutes because I feel stifled with notes. I have to read really fast. The other thing I was wondering is since we don't get the chance to make presentations, before council, like general council, is it possible citizens can make presentations during like committee of the whole or in special committees? And of course, a lot of us are working stiffs. We don't get the day off. And, we might have second shift. We might not be able to be here till second period. And as written, that thing says that it's limited to subjects not addressed in the first speaking period. So the intent is not communicated well, so maybe that needs to be reworded. But I would sincerely ask you to consider some of my proposals and come up with some of your own and come back to us with them so that we can continue to have open communication and not have an adversarial process, and have the citizens just feel like they're completely left out of the government, because we are the government. We're footing the bill. You are elected to listen to us to help further the needs of the entire population. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, I hope I don't mess this name up. Rosalind Pinch. So bad they're not getting up. That's a bad sign. Somebody from Kent. Do we have somebody here from Kent? Saved by the bell. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Council, we have 8 items for council consideration. Is there any item a council member would like pulled for discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
Hearing none, I move the council concur in the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Ms. Breyer. The council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Zwicker.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Breyer?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Prince?
Planning Development has a couple of reports.
Planning and Development Committee report, owner-occupied housing incentive and rental housing incentive. The Planning and Development Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve an extension of the sunset clause for owner-occupied housing incentive and rental housing incentive for 3 years to December 31st, 2015, unless further extended by City Council action. The committee further recommends that the ordinance regarding this matter be presented for first reading. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the council concur with the recommendation of the Planning and Development Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Ms. Breyer. The council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Planning and Development Committee report, multifamily housing property tax exemption program extension. The Planning and Development Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve an extension to the sunset clause for acceptance of new applications for multifamily housing property tax exemption in residential targeted areas for 3 years to December 31, 2015, unless further extended by City Council action. The committee further recommends that the ordinance regarding this matter be presented for first reading. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
Move that the council concur with the recommendation of the Planning and Development Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Ms. Breyer, that council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Person.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Palmer.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor. We met a Community Services Committee and on the appointment for the vacancy for the Library Advisory Board, and I would like to have that revisited. I'd like to take a look at all of the people that have put in applications for that board, and in light of the election, have
Decision of the committee.
big consideration for someone that supported the Cedar River Library, since that's where the direction we'll be moving.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Breyer.
I'm very confused by what you just said. Was that a motion that the entire committee, that your committee decided?
Well, Mr. Taylor wasn't there, so I just decided to hold the committee report. I'd like to have it, the appointment reassessed.
I just have to say I'm a little shocked by what you just said, that if somebody supported the other location, they're not allowed to be on the KCLS board? I mean, that's...
No, not at all, because everyone on there currently does. So I would like to see a little more balance on it moving forward.
I'm sorry, I still don't understand what you're saying. You're saying because they had a location position, that they supported one position, one location over the other, that they're not qualified to be on the board?
Not at all. She's very qualified. But in the past 3 years, everyone that's been appointed has had the same point of view. And I would like to have a more balanced.
But the decision's been made and we're going forward with the location. I don't see what position on the location has to do with it any longer. I'm sorry, I just didn't, you know what I'm saying? That if the decision's been made, we're going forward with the location. I don't know what their position on matters any longer. It should be pro-library. That's what we want them to be about.
And I think one of the other points that I would make is this is a mayor's appointment, and the recommendations brought to me by the Community Services Division, and I would not overturn that recommendation based on that reason. Now, the council as a whole could deny the appointment and leave the position open if I didn't bring another candidate forward. But there isn't a provision, unless I'm missing something, that a city attorney can fill in which the council committee could review and select a candidate.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Barber, did you?
What you stated was correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Zwicker.
Yeah, we referred that matter into Community Services on the consent agenda, I believe it was last week. It didn't come out of Community Services for, I don't know, lack of a quorum, but no deciding vote. So I think that puts it back into, and again, Mr. Barber can correct me, but I think that leaves it open for council action here. I reviewed Ms. King's application and the administration's recommendation. I have no problem appointing her to the board. So with that, I'd make a motion, if, again, Mr. Barber will stop me if I'm out of line, make a motion to accept the appointment of Ms. King to the Library Advisory Board.
Second.
A motion it may be made, yes.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Zwicker, seconded by Ms. Breyer to approve the appointment of Ms. King to the Library Advisory Board. Mr. Corman.
Well, yes, Mr. Mayor, this is pretty awkward. You know, do we want to, we should get into qualifications, we should get into the makeup of the board. I guess I have an awareness, I was never critical of it publicly, but I have an awareness that after the 2010 election, there were people that told me they'd applied for the board, but because they had been in favor of retaining an independent library system instead of joining KCLS, they had been passed over for that position. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I never went back and investigated it, but it did seem like all the members of the Library Advisory Board were in fact on the side of having joined KCLS. I guess I understood that as even though it was only a 53% or 53 vote difference, that it made sense perhaps to have a board that was supportive of KCLS. But I think that the issue that we're presented with tonight is not even 1/4 of our population voted to do the Piazza Library, and yet we're about to add somebody else to the board, to a board which uniformly favored the Piazza Library. And it has nothing to do with the individual. What it has to do with is, does this advisory board represent a cross-section of the opinions of the community? And I challenge anybody to show me the math that would say that adding one more member who supported the Piazza Library, making it unanimous, would somehow represent the opinions of the community.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
I'm just kind of flabbergasted because to me, I just can't see that you're pigeonholing people. These people on the board are people that should be working towards the betterment of the King County Library for Renton citizens. Whether people, I mean, the fact that we voted, that the citizens voted a long time ago to go to KCLS, and we are KCLS, what they supported prior to that doesn't make any difference now. I mean, all the people on that board should be working for our citizens' library. And whether they supported something else, that's water under the bridge, as is the location.
Mr. Mayor?
You got the pun, right? The water under the bridge. Okay, but anyway, you know, I just feel strongly that you're really assuming that these people can't lead the library because they had a position about where it was, you know, the location. And I think it's a real detriment to everybody on there that you're treating them like they're not able to make any distinctions.
Mr. Prince? So we've had an election. The voters' voice has been heard. I think it's incumbent upon us to stop talking in us and them language.
Yes, I agree.
Need to come back together as a community and work for the betterment of the Cedar River Library. So I think, in my opinion, I'm only speaking for myself, saying someone supported this or someone supported that, at this point, the voters spoke. Their will is going to be done. We're going to make that library the best library we can possibly make it.
Exactly.
And continuing to use us and them language isn't going to do what we said we wanted to do, which was have an election, have a result, move on, and come back together.
Thank you. You said it much better than
yeah,
I.
what I would object to is people are putting words in my mouth. I didn't say us and them, and I didn't say that the new appointee wouldn't be capable of seeing through the Cedar River Library. All I said was it would be nice to have a board whose opinions reflect the opinions of the community. And so the question, I mean, if the appointee were here, I suppose we could ask her if she was perfectly comfortable going forward with the Cedar River Library instead of the one that she fully expected when her name was put forward. She's not here right now, so you know, and I think because she was told that it wasn't going to come up tonight, and so we could rush it through. And I'm not quite sure if that vacancy is really killing us so much that we can't wait until the next council meeting. But I don't want to. I think she'd be fully capable of helping develop a beautiful Cedar River Library. But one of the things we definitely want to do is make sure that the community trusts the council to represent their interests, trusts the library board to represent their interests. The library board has to know that the public's going to be on their side, the council's going to be on their side. And so part of doing that is just having a diverse library board that represents the community overall.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
You know, and as I think about this, and I learned about this tonight. I knew we were going to be appointing another individual. I couldn't make the committee of the whole meeting, but I did learn that no action was taken and that there was reservations based upon this reason. And my initial thoughts are thoughts of concern of the individual, because by no fault of the individual, here we are. And so that's my initial response, reaction. I then think about the controversy, the emotion, the passion, the hard road that our residents rode to get here. And during that entire process, there was an erosion of confidence, of trust, of assurances, of belief that we as a body were quick to hear, listen, learn, and do the right things. But here we are. We ultimately did that, and I'm very happy. I commend all of us for being able to put that to the ballot, let the voters speak, and here we are. But I'm also of the belief that when we put that into the context of moving forward, that we can't ignore the residue of what remains and lingers in our community still. You know, there is some trust that needs to be restored. And I think part of that has to do with moving forward, making sure that this library board is going to have someone on it who will advocate for the best that the library can be. And I believe that we do have people who are on that board. In fact, I was a part of the panel to bring some of those individuals to that board prior to our citing the library process. But I believe that we want to take a little bit more time and thought and consideration to make sure that we've got someone on the board, in addition with those who are already there, who has the confidence of the community and the belief that the community has in that individual, that they will work as diligently towards making that library what the community hopes and expects it should be, in combination with those folks that are already there. So I share Marcy's concern. I share Randy's thoughts and concerns about that. And I would like to just extend, speaking for myself, you know, a heartfelt apology for whoever this individual is to find themselves in this position, because it is no fault of that individual's.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
If you were part of the process of selecting those people, do you feel that there are people on the board that couldn't be open-minded and work towards the Cedar River Library? I mean, I think it's kind of...
Got a question for me?
It is.
Okay. The answer to that question is I was a part of the panel who selected some of those individuals prior to our citing the library. Now, what has occurred after that? I was also, you know, a supporter of annexing into KCLS. I, along with other council members, also voted to cite the library at the Big Five site until we heard from our community. Now, that was a game changer. So the answer to your question is that what has changed was, after those appointments and the creation of that board, was the citing, was the pushback from the community, and in combination with that, we had some very active, vocal individuals on that advisory board in support of the Piazza Library. So that can't be ignored. And not to hold that against anyone, because anyone could, you know, I mean, we agree to disagree. I often say if two of us are just alike, one of us isn't necessary. But we can't ignore the idea that some of the individuals on that board were passionate about the Piazza location, and it didn't happen. So to weigh that advisory board with another individual who felt the same way, I think we can do a little bit better than that. I think it would demonstrate on our part that we're being more sensitive, that we're trying to understand a little bit more of how to mend, you know, some of the gaps of trust that has eroded coming down this path throughout the community, and I wouldn't be opposed to our figuring out a way to do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
This is awkward. I think it's awkward for all of us. I feel very, I apologize to the appointee, but you know, I think part of this, I'm just gonna blame it on the Renton Reporter. I have no idea why the Renton Reporter came out with an article that said this isn't a done deal, it's a long road. If we do the Cedar River Library, it's likely not to happen, it's likely not to be done. But, you know, that's the language I saw. Now, because I take the Open Public Meetings Act seriously, I didn't call every one of you council members and say, hey, what's going to happen now that this vote happened? I just, like so many other people, opened up the newspaper and saw the editor of the Renton Reporter telling the community and the council and the mayor that this was in no way a done deal. So that's how we come to the meeting tonight. And I think if Ms. Palmer sort of kind of comes to the meeting going, with that much news saying it's not really over, you know, we should make sure the board is balanced. I don't think that was such a bad call. Now, it's great that the rest of the council and the mayor and everybody were all saying, the Renton Reporter is all wet. I don't know where that came from. That was made up. The fact is, we're committed to doing this. Unfortunately, because of what happened earlier tonight, the appointee's not here to just ask a couple of simple questions and move on. And like I say, I blame the Renton Reporter. I don't know why they did that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I was in committee. And when it came up, the one thing that she did say was it was time to move on. That is the one thing that I can clearly say. She said, there was an election, it's time to move on. I think that we're all forgetting this is a mayoral appointment. He does not have to, he can hear us, but ultimately he can decide who he wants on there. With that, I think I'm ready to vote on the motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Zwicker.
Yeah, why don't we just go ahead and call for the question? If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, you'll have to go back to the drawing board.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that council appoint the candidate for the Library Advisory Board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed. Mr. Mayor, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Zwicker?
Aye.
Ms. Breyer?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Ms. Palmer?
No.
Mr. Corman?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Mr. Taylor?
No.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor. There are 4 ayes and 2 noes, 1 abstain.
Okay, motion
passes.
carries. Okay, who did I leave? Oh, Mr. Corman.
That was fun, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I have some transportation committee reports to present.
Transportation Aviation Committee Report. Interlocal Agreement for Energy Conservation Project Management and Monitoring LED Streetlights. The Transportation Aviation Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve an interlocal agreement with Washington State Department of Enterprise Services, DES, to allow DES to provide energy conservation project management and monitoring services to the city through June 30th, 2014, as the city seeks to convert street lamps to LED. The committee further recommends that the resolution regarding this matter be presented for reading and adoption. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move the council concur in the committee report. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Mr. Person, that council concur with the Transportation Aviation Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Transportation Aviation Committee Report, Agreement with King County Water District Number 90 for water main improvements. The Transportation Aviation Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve a utilities cooperation agreement with King County Water District 90 for construction of the district's water lines along with the city's Northeast 3rd, 4th Street Corridor Improvement Project. The committee further recommends that the resolution regarding this matter be presented for reading and adoption. This is signed by the 3 committee members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I move council concur in the committee report. Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Mr. Person, that council concur with the Transportation Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Person.
I'd just like to comment that those last 2 reports were bringing money to us, not taking it away.
That's always a good thing.
Then, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're holding the 6-year transportation improvement program, as was mentioned earlier. And then I do have one more item, just to make tonight a complete fun adventure. As Robert's Rules of Order would permit me, since this was the next council meeting, the next regular meeting, and I did vote in the prevailing side last week, to move for reconsideration of the council speaking time limits. So I would move that we reconsider our vote last week.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Ms. Palmer, that council reconsider the council policy on the 3-minute audience comment.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Sure.
It seems like I think we need some word editing because it appeared to me after listening to the comments from the audience that that some of the information, our intent was not clear to the audience. So anyway.
Okay. Any further comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I thank Mr. Zwicker for describing, I think fairly accurately, what was the initial intent of the 30-minute limit, 5 minutes each before, and then if it spills over, it's 5 minutes in the end. People are allowed 5 minutes. But for as long as I've been on council, we've sort of loosely interpreted that as people could come back and speak again. And so, you know, the reality is, regardless of whatever it meant, the reality is people have become accustomed to a format where they have 5 minutes. And then you actually, Mr. Mayor, have been extremely gracious about extending that 30 minutes at the beginning, so that if you see that there's 10 people that, you know, that are roughly keeping it at 3 minutes to 5 minutes, you've allowed them all to speak. And I think we've found our way through some very sensitive issues, but being very gracious about letting people speak. And they've certainly become accustomed to it. I think that the public comments actually are very interesting. They're one of my favorite parts of the meeting. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say that when I think back over the 19 years, I've almost universally enjoyed that part of the meeting. And so when over the course of this last week, I had people questioning, you know, why I had agreed to this sort of what I'd considered a compromise, because the first proposal was we'd shorten it to 3 minutes and drop the second audience comment, and then Marcy had sort of scrambled to try and get the second audience comment back by saying, well, we could restore the second half of the time, the 2 minutes that was missing. I had accepted that, but then I found myself in the really awkward position of being the spokesperson for a policy which I frankly don't even like, because I like hearing from the public, I like the candor, I learn a lot, and I think that they are respectful. I think Mr. Key's math sounds pretty accurate, that most of our meetings run 36 minutes and we've had some doozies. But you know, one thing is we could have made the time limit 3 minutes, and the Cedar River Library folks could have just put twice as many people up, you know. So it's not like we, you know, it's not like we really have any control over the length of the meetings when it comes down to it. In fact, one thing I've seen over the years, and I have not seen it lately, but is people trying to yield their time to other speakers. I think we might get a lot of that with the 3 minutes. And we've never decided whether somebody can yield their time to another speaker, but I think with 5, people feel like they have a chance to say what they need to say. And one of the last things I think I want to say on this was that I was thinking about how I've seen 3 minutes work, and as Mr. Zwicker said, there's many other forums in the state, ones I've spoken to, where I'm limited to 3 minutes. But usually there's the meeting has been set up, it's like a public hearing, there's been a presentation, I've got 3 minutes, I got to get through my points and say what I need to in my 3 minutes. I think this is a little bit of a different forum, where we've had many people come and just start talking to us about a fence on a piece of property, and then we got to figure out who this person is and where they live and why the fence is important and who their neighbors are and how many cars are being parked there, and it's complicated. It's like there's no setup. And yeah, what about the roosters? You're right. Got to find it, figure it all out. And so for somebody that's just coming down to hit us cold on a topic, if they thought they had 3 minutes to get all that in there, I don't even think they'd try. The other point, Mr. Avery made the point when he was speaking, that they could send us an email in advance, but then the public wouldn't know whatever it is that we're hearing. I thought that was an interesting point, that people can do a Freedom of Information request and get the email, but that costs us a fortune. It's a lot better if they can just hear it when we hear it. And then everybody, council, mayor, members of the public, can also look at the person's demeanor, you know, figure out if, you know, how passionate are they about this issue, how much do they seem to know about the issue. So I like the audience comments, and I don't think we need to shorten it. So in the end, I felt like I had I'd betrayed myself by agreeing. I'd agreed because it was a compromise. I thank the council for the compromise, but I'm still not in favor of it.
Before we move on to the vote, I just want to remind you this is a council policy. I think somebody said before the vote last time, if it doesn't work and we can change it back, so you aren't locked into it regardless of how this vote goes tonight. So any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say, one of my thoughts on why I was in favor of this was more the second comment period and trying to get people to talk to a different topic. So if they had spoken in the first time period, that they didn't get up in the second and just repeat the exact same information. And as some of us have sat through some of those longer meetings, and we would get a lot of that where the people just get back up and they say the same things. And I would just like to have new information if they're going to talk again. So
are we ready for the vote?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a comment too. Hey, just a thought came to mind. I was pretty moved by the speaker, Mr. Mohammed Hassan, who, I think he articulated it quite well. I happen to know that he is from the Somali community. And one of the things that I'm very aware of and sensitive to is that as we progress in our ability to connect effectively and integrate and engage with all of our wonderful diverse community groups, from our Ukrainian, our Somali, our Hispanic, everyone, and particularly immigrant refugees. One thing that I don't ever want to lose track of is the number one fear every person is public speaking. That's the number one fear. And when a person comes up to the podium, before, here we are sitting on our high dais, and they're speaking to the mayor and the council members, the elected body of their city after they come into our big ivory tower, it's somewhat intimidating. And for us to want to reduce, we've been giving people 10 minutes, 5 on the front end, 5 on the back. Doesn't bother me because they might think of something that they forgot to say when they were at the podium. Maybe someone else stimulated another thought or idea. To take that away and reduce it to at best 5 minutes, 3 in the front and 2 in the back, I think is it's unfair to them and it's unfair to us. It's an opportunity for us to learn. And I don't claim to have all the great ideas, but I can tell you I've heard a lot of them that come from the folks out there. And so I'm always interested in figuring out ways how we can improve, how we can increase, how we can become better at connecting with, understanding, learning from our customers, our residents. With that.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to say something real quickly. First of all, I was so surprised when this even came up a few weeks ago. I didn't think we had a problem. And I agree with Mr. Corman and Mr. Taylor that it's our job to listen to the people that we represent. And I reluctantly went along with it because I thought it was better to have a second one than just to drop it down to 3 minutes. But obviously the public doesn't agree that this is enhancing or anything positive for them, and that's why I think we should revisit it.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I can't let it go. One of the reasons it came up was just the fact that we're not doing it correctly now, and the idea was to actually rewrite the policy into so that we were doing it accurately, because the policies, we've been doing it different for the last few years. So, I mean, that's why the issue came up at this time, was just the fact that we weren't living by the policy that we had. So, in the process of that, then the conversation came up, well, do we want to shuffle the times around? So that's why it came up.
Okay, well, I think everybody's had a chance to weigh in on this, so all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
What was the
No, no.
I guess we have
The motion was to reconsider it.
Right.
Yes.
Could you
So if
repeat
you're going to
that?
reconsider it, if you want to reconsider it, you got to vote yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Can we repeat the
Okay,
vote,
so-
Mr. Mayor?
Motion is to reconsider.
Thank you, Mr. Person.
Yeah, that's right.
You guys voted no.
I think I just voted down my own motion.
The motion is to reconsider the 3-minute limit.
Okay.
All those in favor of reconsideration, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that's passed. And we probably could have given everybody 10 minutes if we just didn't have this debate. Okay, Mr. Taylor, Utilities Committee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Utility Committee does have a committee report.
We're human. We're human.
Utilities Committee Report, 2012 Water System Plan Update. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to
Yes.
approve the 2012 Water System Plan update and to forward the plan to King County and the Washington State Department of Health for approval. The committee further recommends that the resolution regarding this matter be presented for reading and adoption. This is signed by the committee chair, vice chair, and member.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I
Mr. Taylor.
I move that the council concur with the Utilities committee report.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Prince. The council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, moving on to resolutions and ordinances. We have 4 resolutions and 2 ordinances.
The first resolution regards the cooperative purchasing agreement with Yakima County. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an intergovernmental cooperative purchasing agreement with Yakima County.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
I move this resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Breyer, seconded by Mr. Person, that this resolution be adopted as read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next resolution regards the streetlight conversion agreement with the Department of Enterprise Services. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an interlocal agreement with the State of Washington Department of Enterprise Services entitled Interagency Agreement Energy Conservation Project Management Services.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the resolution be adopted as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Ms. Palmer, that this resolution be adopted as read. I think someone thought they had to reread it. All in favor of the motion, say
Wait,
aye.
I gotta ask
Aye.
Mr. Person which way we're supposed to vote.
Any way you want to.
Aye.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next resolution regards the Utilities Cooperative Agreement with Water District 90. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a utilities cooperation agreement with the King County Water District 90 for construction of the district's water main improvements in conjunction with the City of Renton's Northeast 3rd, 4th Street Corridor Improvements Project.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the council concur with the concur with the resolution.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Corman, that council adopt the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And the last resolution regards adopting the 2012 Water System Plan Update. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, adopting the 2012 Water System Plan Update.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I move the council concur with adopt the resolution for the water transportation, excuse me, where are we at here? There we go. The water system plan update.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Corman. The council approved the resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The first ordinance, the ordinance for first reading regards extending the waiver of development and mitigation fees for owner-occupied and rental housing. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 4.1.210, waive fees of Chapter 1, Administration and Enforcement of Title 4, Development Regulations of City Code by extending the waiver of certain development and mitigation fees.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And the last ordinance for first reading regards extending the multifamily property tax exemption program. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 41220 property tax exemption for multifamily housing in residential targeted areas of Chapter 1 Administration and Enforcement of Title 4 Development Regulations of City Code by extending the property tax exemption.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Moving on to new business. Mr. Zwicker had to step out, so...
I'll state.
Okay.
Give that information. For Mr. Zwicker, the Committee of the Whole will meet next Monday, August 13th at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers. We have 3 items on the our agenda: mobile food vendors, the Human Services funding recommendations, and the CDBG Community Development Block Grant funding recommendations.
Okay, and that's actually for August 20th, Monday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And then if I can go on to say the Finance Committee will meet at 4:30 next Monday, August 20th, in the council conference room. 3 items also: Rivers Edge Condos utility bill adjustment request, maintenance shop storage bay conversion, and vouchers. That's all I have.
Thanks, Ms. Breyer. Mr. Prince.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to refer to the administration a letter we received from Mr. McCumber for a response.
Okay.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Ms. Palmer, that correspondence from Howard McCumber be referred to the administration. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Person?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Public Safety Committee scheduled next week has been canceled. However, I would like to refer 2 topics to the Public Safety Committee for briefing only. A briefing on handicap parking. I move we refer to the Public Safety Committee handicap parking, and a briefing on camera enforcement and the revenues.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that the topics of handicap parking and photo enforcement be referred to the Public Safety Committee for a briefing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And I would like to refer to the Finance Committee, which I have talked to the chair about, the briefing on the electric charging stations and how they're working in the city.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Ms. Breyer, that the topic of electric charging stations be referred to the Finance Committee for a briefing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
That's it.
Okay, Ms. Palmer?
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Corman?
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Taylor?
No new business, Mr. Mayor, but as always, you know, I've got a couple things to report and what I've been doing over the past week or so. You're involved in that, and on Saturday we attended the Sikh Community's candlelight memorial service. It was a very sad event, but it was well supported by many of our legislators. Senator Cantwell was there, Jay Inslee, Rob McKenna, Dow Constantine, Bob Ferguson, Reagan Dunn. Our mayor was there, of course.
I missed it. I just sent a letter.
I think I saw Jay Covington there, though also I was there. But, and we had our fire personnel also, and it was just a wonderful outpouring of a community that has been wronged during these difficult times. But they really are resilient and are loving community that, you know, received all of that support, and I encourage everyone to continue that support. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit their temple, you should. It's a part of our learning about our different communities communities, our different cultures, and getting to understand them better, and which helps us and how we interact with individuals. So I wanted to share that. The other thing that I had an opportunity to do today was, thanks to Mr. Prince, gave me an invitation to it. I met Congressman Bernie Thompson at Seattle University Law School, and he's a member of Homeland Security, and he was speaking about racism in agencies such as the Customs and Border Control and TSA. It was a very stimulating conversation, and I certainly can benefit from that, being that I do serve on the Emergency Management Advisory Council, Region 6, Homeland Security. So thank you, Mr. Prince, for that handoff, and that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Next is audience comment. Is there anybody who would like to address the council?
Yes, please.
Come forward, give your name and city of residence for the record.
Phyllis Forrester, Renton. I've got an idea. Stop the first session at the end of 30 minutes. Then let everybody stay through the council meeting to see its government at work. Then they're going to have a whole lot more questions and a whole lot more comments. And you're going to be here a lot later, no doubt. So, you know, I think that if you just go with what you already have, 5 minutes, stop it at the 30-minute limit, go to the end of the meeting, and then let everybody finish up with all their new stuff. I'm flabbergasted that you're flabbergasted that we do not feel like we are represented by the Library Advisory Board when they have totally supported the Piazza move. Now, that membership, I went to the League of Women Voters Forum, and the president of that board was
Okay, excuse me, Ms. Forrester, I'm not going to let you stay in the podium and start
I'm not saying
taking
anybody's
attacks
name.
again. Well, it doesn't matter. People know who they are. It's a
Okay.
group of volunteers that are serving in an advisory capacity.
Listen, you're telling me that I can't talk
I'm telling
about
you, you're
how
not
I
going
want to be represented.
You're not going to talk
Okay.
about individuals that are on.
Let's
the-
back up then. That was the library, that was the League of Women Voters, which was a public meeting, by the way. Anyway, and there were a lot of people there. We are not represented. Now, we've come a long way. We've got all this, we've got the vote and everything, and now we have no representation. Now, you might think, and maybe if somebody said, let's move on, but I'm sorry, when there's, I don't know how many members are on there, what, 16? What are the odds that all those people are going to be for the Piazza? So I want you to know that I think that you have to have some people from both sides here representing. You're going to be making decisions with KCLS. You're going to be making decisions on the new library, and that's what we've been fighting for. So now you're going to say, okay, go away. We don't need you anymore. We're going to do it our way. Excuse me, but I don't think the public is going to accept that. So you might want to look again and see if you can add some membership there, at least a one-on-one, somehow bring this group that has fought so hard and validated everything that they've done. Now don't tell us to go away.
Suhino? Yes, Cal Lambert, West Hill. I have some similar concerns in listening to what I heard tonight. I get the distinct impression that gratefully the city and PCLS have agreed to sit down and resume discussions. However, this seems to be occurring with the same sort of stovepiping that was characteristic of city executive administration in the past. And again, I feel that the people who woke up and got involved in this are not fully prepared to accept that. Therefore, we're looking for ways to participate in the decision process, particularly in regard to design and cost and operating expenses for the new library. And we believe we have a very useful and significant contribution to make in that area. There are people in this audience who have a substantial amount of expertise and can be a resource for this council. And perhaps one way we could make this happen, if the city council would agree, would be to offer a presentation to the Library Advisory Board and let them determine whether it's worthy of the rest of the council's attention. How does that sound?
Yes, Ms. Breyer.
I guess I'm still not exactly sure what kind of information you have that you want to present.
Okay, it's not something that I can just pull out.
I do need to stand by the microphone because we have to pick it up. Thank you.
Is my time out? To put it in short way, we have made extensive study of KCLS documents, and we've in addition obtained by Freedom of Information documents that is not in the public domain and which the council has not seen. We have done analysis of those documents, and we now have some preliminary assessment and analysis that we'd like to present. In addition, there are certain decisions that are embedded in the KCLS proposal regarding technical and engineering solutions to problems that arose during the design and renovation of the Cedar River Library. We find that there are very strong grounds to challenge the engineering and science bases behind those decisions. And so what we're looking at is a rather technical discussion, but we can reduce it to some Excel spreadsheets and some graphics that I think will be understandable and could help the council in better achieving what the citizens of this city want to have occur.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
My understanding is that's what that advisory board should do. I would really like to hear, I guess I'll think that things are really right again when I do get a report that yes, they made an opportunity to listen to those suggestions, digested them, synthesized them, and then that library board can come back to the city council and say, hey, we've spent a lot of time looking at these ideas, and for instance, I'll throw something out, and we disagree with KCLS about where the door for the the front entrance is. We think it should still be on the bridge. I'd love to have the library board coming back, listening to the citizen comments so that we don't have to do it all in here, and then coming back with those kinds of suggestions. And I think when we get to the point where that's happening, the city will be healed and we'll all be on the same page of music once again. So it's a great idea. I mean, that's where it should happen.
Mr. Mayor, with your approval, may I ask David Keyes to address this same issue? I think he's got a great perspective on it.
Okay.
If I could say something just for 30 seconds.
Come up.
Come on.
I'm sorry, Cal, in a certain respect, has probably been playing a point, and he didn't have to entirely. Terry, the kinds of things...
I'm sorry, you'll need to give your name for the record again.
And it means I have to remember it. David Keyes. Okay. Terry, you're asking what these kinds of comments are. There are a number of reasons I'm going to say what I'm going to say next, but then that comes back to the specific question. To many of us, what KCLS did with their letter appeared to be very much a political tool as opposed to a real study of the physical situation that both KCLS and we as the city of Renton are faced with if you go into refurbishing the existing building. And I say that for several reasons I'm not going to get into right here. But the feasibility study that they had Miller Hall do is not what I'd consider a reasonable feasibility study in any sense. It was a very focused set of recommendations without any information as to budgeting, as to comparative prices for different kinds of results. And they didn't even try to develop the efficacy of what they were recommending. They have recommendations in there that lead to extremely expensive components that are simply aesthetic decisions. And when you go to the Miller Hall study to try to read through their list of recommendations, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so pointed to you, but you've asked the question. Miller Hall, in at least one case, that added over $600,000 to the $13 million estimate. says that the recommendation is based on the recommendations of two of their sub-consultants, the envelope consultant and the electrical consultant. Both of those consultants are absolutely silent on the issue. And a recommendation for part of that physical environment, we're talking about a finished ceiling in this case, recommendation came from the envelope consultant to take out the ceiling insulation, put all this insulation on the roof. That's a perfectly good recommendation. But the detail recommendation that led to so much money really had nothing to do with that. It was the cost of the system that would go in to be the finished ceiling in the end. There is a specific series of misstatements in Miller Hull's study having to do with the energy code, the state energy code.
Can I just
Yes.
interrupt, please? That's what I thought the other gentleman was alluding to, was some of the really technical things. And, you know, that's really, at this point, out of the scope of, I feel, of the council, because our knowledge isn't in that area. You know, we kind of need recommendations for us to review, and it needs to be reviewed by, you know, our city staff that deal with that all the time, and I assume KCLS's staff that also deal with those specific items, or their...
Keep in mind, it was KCLS staff that commissioned...
But it was done independently, too. So, I'm just saying, yes, I think that all needs to be evaluated. I don't know that we're the body to do it at this time. I think it needs to be reviewed by the staffs and the consultants that they hire, and make a recommendation to us.
We also think that, excuse me, since we've gone through this, there's a great deal of information we can give your own staff. They may well be aware of some of these issues. And certainly something like the Library Advisory Board should hear this. Now, if that then comes back to you, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess, and I guess I kind of see them as being similar to us. I mean, what I think they should be doing is helping design, not where how the insulation is installed, but more the physical layout and how it's going to work, and how it's going to interact with the public that use it. And to me, that's what they should be doing, and be involved in that.
To those issues.
Yeah, and I know that with the other libraries and stuff, and I'm sure that Mayor Law will agree with me, there'll be open houses and lots of opportunities to look at that. Because
they've had a couple of those, and what they do during those is they give just a few minutes for the general group that is there to listen to, and then they spread you out into different parts of the room. That's fine, except that everyone that came doesn't hear what others' concerns were.
It can certainly be reformatted. What you're talking about is the typical way we've been doing them in the city for all different all different open house.
It's not adequate. It's a very good comment.
So, because one of the ways it allows some one-on-one conversation with someone rather than public speaking to talk to questions, and it's just something that we've been doing.
What happens, Terry, is, at least with the KCLS consultant, that stuff is buried and the issues are not addressed the next time around, or the next time around, or the next time around.
I certainly take it under consideration that
what needs to happen is that you were informed enough to say, wait a minute. And again, you know, the ILA at a certain point gives you a right very, very clearly to state that, to step in. And if you're not informed what some of these, excuse me, my mouth's getting dry. If you're not informed what some of these situations or issues are, and have the chance to ask questions and say, well, this doesn't make sense, what am I saying to you? Ask questions, go back and forth, and yes, it's a detailed, kind of time-consuming step, but without it, you're going to be making decisions completely in the dark.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Might I suggest, and I don't know exactly how something like this could happen specifically, but I believe what I'm hearing are some people, and Mr. Keys is his background is in architecture, so he's a qualified expert in understanding things that are just kind of out of our pay grades. But I'm aware that the group for the Cedar River Library have done some extensive work in learning a lot of different pieces of how this is supposed to look, and that maybe they do have some valuable information that can be shared with our staff. And I don't know if that would be, it doesn't sound like it would be through the advisory group, because they're into the design process and the physical aesthetics of the library process. But maybe Mr. Keys and others along with him can be pulled in to have some conversations with Mr. Renner, some other folks on our staff, and KCLS, to just try kind of do a little bit of sharing of some of the information and concerns that they have, to try to, I think ultimately what they want to help us to do is reduce the cost, and not to end up going down a road that's going to see us spending more dollars than we have to. And if there's a way that we can pull them in and to utilize their some of the information that they can offer us upon our verifying it and confirming that it's on the right track, I'd be in agreement with trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, on that note, I would like to make a motion and just refer this to the administration, and hope that some kind of a meeting could be set up.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I'm not real sure of the motion, but
I'm not either.
Refer it to the administration for.
I guess the thing, I mean, we're a ways away, and KCLS needs to give us some direction. We're not building the library; they're designing what they need.
Right.
And, we're giving them some money, and obviously, it's got to meet our needs in terms of.
So maybe they need to work with them.
Well, I think, I mean, that's what's interesting. We'll need to have some discussions with KCLS, because I think a lot of your discussions need to be with KCLS.
Perhaps. They can certainly
but we can help facilitate
yes.
that. So,
yeah.
So it's been moved and seconded that we help facilitate a meeting with members that are interested on the construction side of it with KCLS.
Mr. Mayor, one more thing, and you're right, we're not building the library, KCLS is, but one of the things that we are, we have to be aware of is that we only bonded for $18 million in money, and being prudent on how those dollars are going to be spent is critical. We don't want to, have a design that's going to exceed that, and then we have to go out and figure out ways to get more money.
Well, we're very committed to not spending more money, so.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Carmen.
And if I could just, speak in favor of the motion. The public, for any public works project, the public has a definite right to oversee the activities of that project. And we've kind of set this one up in a confusing way. We're going to have to work extra hard to remedy that, so that they feel like they have a forum, whether it's our advisory board or whether it's going directly to KCLS with our endorsement and support or whatever. But definitely we need the public to feel like if they have expertise they can bring and make suggestions, that somebody is there that's receptive to those.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I interject one thing?
Yes.
I've been exchanging notes with Madam Clerk, and basically what it comes down to, I think that the motion to reconsider the time length for audience comment probably needs to be referred to Council Committee.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Barrett.
As I kind of stated before, that was just a policy amongst lots of policies that we frequently take a look at to redo, and that's how that one came up. So I guess I'd like to refer it back to, I don't know, it would be a special committee typically for policy, unless it's just the committee of the whole?
Committee of the whole, I would think.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. The topic of audience comment time be referred to committee of the whole. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor, now that I voted for that motion, can we just clarify, because I know a lot of members of the public will wonder exactly what we just did there. We're referring that back because there's little wording changes, but not because we're going to go from 5 to 3, right?
You can go to 5 to 3. Don't
What do you
mind.
think? Whatever we want. The whole topic.
It's open.
Right.
The whole topic's open.
Start over.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I think that it was back to the committee of the council. It can be discussed whether to stay at 5 or 3 or make any other changes that the council wishes to make.
So, so I just make the observation, we must love audience comment because we're certainly inviting more by taking that action. But I sense from the council that the 5 was good, but that we might have other wording changes. But I guess
There could be other wording changes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, another thing too is that you could make a motion tonight if you specifically knew what you wanted.
No, we're not
We
going to
do
do that. The
not.
council
No, we're not
president's
doing
not
that. We
here.
do
That's
not.
what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my name is John Joseph, one word, Pager, P-A-J-O-R, I come from Renton. I wanted to address one thing that seems that I don't have to say this to Marcy or to Greg or to Randy. I think you guys got that. But the rest of you somehow missed something, and this is how your public, people you represent, hear you. How do people who are hotly in favor of the Piazza site not affect the library development when they are 100% of that committee, even if the public stopped them from doing what they wanted? And let's put it another way: will a Baker's Club, who were told represented the public's taste for apple pie, make the best peach pie the public really wanted? In fact, best peach pie is made by those who are invested in peach pie. The Wolves wanted to have the chicken coop, so the chickens decided no way. But the Wolves still want to change or design the chicken coop. Something's in the making there,
Well, I think you've got a misconception here. The Library Advisory Board is not going to be designing the library.
No, but they are going to have a lot of say-so in things, and what I'm trying to get to is one of the points of people wanting the Cedar Library, besides the library itself, there's a children's program that is highly invested in because of the size of that building. One of the things we heard is that children's program was not going to be continued because of the size of the new one. And there are a lot of little things like that, not little, but really tangible things that have to do with the public's interest in that Cedar Library. Others have to do with location, but other things are involved. We're not just talking, the building itself. The location has a lot to do with different things, but the building offered a lot of things, and those people had that in mind. So when they go to their commentaries and discussions about what's needed and that, you get people who are pro downtown. They're not going to even have an idea of what to do, what the public wanted, and the reasons behind it. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. And I want to address some real important points here, because KCLS did the same number that they did to Renton on Burien. I don't know if you guys even studied this, but they first thing they did is that building seismically disastrous. What do they think they did to us? That was one of the first things they did here. They must have a plan book, because they almost did step by step what they did in Burien. I was in Burien. I talked to, there was a lady at the Burien Library, which I happen to use because it's close to my church. And she said, I have hated this library since the day they put it up, and we have to live with it, and we've paid for it. Your people are still talking about it. I heard that woman say that no more than 2.5 months ago. Do you want people in Renton to move away? That's what you sound like in a lot of the ways. The second thing is, and this is really important, I'm going to ask you the question, do you realize KCLS has been investigated for financial mismanagement? Do you know that? Why hasn't somebody said something then? Why do you have to keep all these facts hidden from these people? I am sick and tired of what you guys are doing. You don't have any
Sir,
respect for the people.
You're out of order now.
Well, I'm the people. You are the ones I've hired.
Well, I don't know if I can follow that. I'm going to be redundant. I'm going to talk about the library. First, I'm going to ask a question, but before you answer the question, I'm going to say a couple things about it. My question is, what's up with the Highlands Library? I've heard the developers pulled out of the joint parking, and this has to go back to design. So this is looking like another poor management decision on the part of KCLS, where we're going to go into cost overruns. And since I've been through this whole process, my fear is that all these cost overruns are not going to be blamed on their poor management of the project, but on the fact that we want to renovate the Cedar River Library. And I'm not going to fall for that. And I'd also like to say that it doesn't appear that the leopard has changed its spots. I think certain members of the council and the mayor perhaps totally misunderstood the issue and missed the point of having someone who was in the Citizens for Cedar River Library movement on the library board. Because the perception of a great many citizens, not just the ones you hear from up here, is that you do not listen, you do not care. And by ramming this person onto the board, you've just confirmed that. You've done the same thing you did when you tried to ram the site selection down our throats. You've once again not listened to us and not heard what we're trying to say. We don't trust a board entirely made up of people that were in favor of the piazza. And Mr. Prince, I know you said, well, we can move on. We don't feel that we're going to be represented, so how can we move on? I would ask that you appoint more members to this library advisory board if that's what it takes. Issue a proclamation, do whatever it takes, but you've got to listen to what people are saying. They are saying we do not trust the system. The system is adversarial. The system has not listened to us. It has not changed. And you have just proved that. Again, you've rammed something down our throats. You've missed the point. You've completely glossed over the issue. KCLS is known for cost overruns. They're known for poor management, mismanagement. They've been had up for not following the state bidding practices. Read that SAO audit. I've got that and a whole bunch more documents. And I've read every one of them. If it's too technical for you to handle, Ms. Rear, then you'd better hire an outside consultant who can handle it. Someone fair, someone from out of the state, someone unbiased. And you better let citizens have a voice in who is chosen too. This is becoming ridiculous. And I'm sorry to be disrespectful, but once again, you're not listening, you're not hearing. And we're just the tip of the iceberg. But we're paying for this. And we don't have all that much to pay for it with. And I don't want KCLS reaching in here, then reaching in there. Our property taxes went up 2%, KCLS's tax went up. We're still funding the bonds to the 1.8 million tune of the same budget we would have had if we'd have kept our independent library. And now, what's going to happen? Now, once again, we're not going to be represented. It's not fair. Thank you.
Hi again, my name is Richard Bray. I live in the Renton Highlands.
First of all, I do want to thank you, the council, tonight. You have listened and you're reflecting on the time limit thing. I came here specifically and I addressed that the first issue. So I appreciate that you are going to take that in consideration and like Mom said, thank people when they do good things. So I think you all did listen and I appreciate that. Secondly, I think what you're hearing and what I heard from friends and neighbors and church members and people in the campaign is there is this sense in the community of this lack of trust in our leadership. And what I would encourage you to do is do initiatives that can engage people so that this sense of trust and all of us working together
can happen in the city. You know, we pride ourselves as being ahead of the curve. Well, the only way we're going to be able to remain ahead of the curve is for us all working together. So, you know, do what you can to restore trust, invite people to be part of the process, and let's work and make this all happen to all of our benefits for my children, for the community's children, so we all can continue to have this wonderful city in the best shape that it can be. Thank you.
Yes, Kathleen Ozenkop, Renton resident, 40 years. I just wanted to discuss the Library Advisory Board appointment tonight. And I don't know any members personally on the board, but I do recall on Renton River Days, where I was promoting the Cedar River Library, at the Cedar River Library, where a very articulate woman came to me and mentioned that she was a member of the Library Advisory Board. And she said, I am probably the only one on the board who is going to vote for the location over the Cedar River. She said everyone else is so against the Cedar River Library location. So I'm just giving you that word from the street, that I believe we need a balanced library advisory board so that we can move forward with trust in the government that is we have hired to represent us. Thank you.
Bob Poitras, it's Poitras. Am I allowed two subjects? I quickly wanted to ask about the electric car. How many spots do we have, plug-ins for electric cars? There's two out front, but
we have some at the landing. We have some at the community center here at City Hall.
IKEA.
Brendan has a couple. Who funds those?
Greg, do you know, most of that, the actual installations one was grant money that we received.
Yeah.
Right. It was, Mr. Mayor, it was grant money for the most part. I'm not sure if it was entirely covered by grant money, but the businesses that are installing those are doing it without grant money. They're just doing it on their own.
It's their power?
Yes.
Their power.
They charge.
Because, you know, if you take this a long ways out, and we just talk about all these highway projects you have and stuff, and the 9 cents a gallon, you know, I have to remind you, these electric cars aren't paying.
That's right.
Yeah, so pretty quick, we have a bunch of electric cars and a bunch of broken roads.
Yeah, they are set up to where you pay for your electricity. Right now, it's free.
Yeah.
Because nobody's really using it.
Yeah, I understand that.
Once we get an electric car in town, start charging.
And the other thing is Renton Reporter. I'm thinking in terms of an anti-littering ordinance. It's like an Easter egg hunt for me to find mine. Sometimes it's under my motorhome, it's in the bushes, you know, or the rhododendron type thing. It's not uncommon to drive down the street on a Saturday morning and see these papers still littered across the driveways and wherever. I've called several times regarding the distribution of this paper. They drive down both sides of the street and there's papers flying out. You know, they're going 30 miles an hour and at 25, and a little dangerous. But and the last but not least, I want to thank you for being here. You know, I guess you're on overtime now. Not so, but thanks for the chance to make a comment.
You bet. Thank you.
You bet.
Welcome.
Dave Beeden, Renton resident, B-E-E-D-O-N. Just a quick question. I recently heard that in the city, there's an ordinance or a law or something against the practice of airsoft games. And does anybody know if that's true? Airsoft is this, you know, playing war with these pellet guns and...
I'm not aware of anything. I don't know if the city attorney's aware of anything.
Mr. Mayor.
We can check for you if you'd like. I'm not aware of any.
Who could I follow up with later?
We can have the police department check on that for you.
And how would they follow up with me?
Well, I assume if we have your information.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Thank you.
You bet.
Good day, Ben Johnson, JOHMSON. Thanks for the reconsidering. I really appreciate it. I'm kind of checking over the WAC. There actually is nothing that says you have to actually have audience comment. And comparing the other municipalities, there's a lot of them out there that are just 3 minutes. But I think 5 minutes is actually what makes us better. And I think you made a pragmatic choice in that if you put it at 3 minutes, we'd probably bore you to death repeatedly about it for the next few months. So you're probably ducking out on less audience comments by making it 5 minutes, then back to 5, then 3. I would say, just, from my personal standpoint, though, I would be perfectly happy with a limitation that the subject matter that somebody comes up to the podium be local or municipal based. I would have no problem with that. I mean, you obviously want to construe that somewhat liberally, but there's nothing wrong with you guys limiting, the crazy talk about, Federal Reserve systems and stuff like that. I would have no problem with that myself, and I'm kind of a nut for free speech. But this should be for local, stuff, and so yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
I couldn't resist this thought that just rolled into my head. I guess I'm getting a little wheezy right now, Ben. But it's not. There isn't a law that says that you have to listen to your wife. But something tells me that it's a wise man who'll do that. I think we'll be wise to listen to you guys too.
What's the wish to the council?
Mr. Beeden, Floyd Eldridge is here from the police department where they can just hook up tonight and then he can get his answer.
Sorry, Floyd.
With that, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.